I dragged myself down the hall like a zombie, steel-toed boots thudding against the stained carpet. 12 hours straight at the plant, lungs full of welding smoke, arms numb from lifting plate after plate. My shoulders were toast. I just wanted a shower, maybe leftover lasagna, and bed. But halfway to my door I heard it. Music, loud, bass-heavy. Then laughter, voices I didn't recognize. A glass clinked against a bottle. Then someone shouted something about shotgun the couch. I stopped. That was my Bluetooth speaker, my apartment. What the hell? I shoved my key into the lock and swung the door open. The place looked like a frat house after a tailgate. Beer cans on the table, weed smoke in the air, my couch packed with 6 guys I didn't know. One of them had his boots up on my coffee table, which now had a ring of hot sauce and ash. Another was eating Doritos straight out of the family-size bag I bought last week. My Bluetooth speaker was cranked to max, blasting some auto-tuned garbage. Then I heard a voice from the kitchen. "Yo, Cal! Didn't think you'd be back so early." It was Nate, my little brother. He popped around the corner, beer in hand, grinning like he was hosting a cookout. I just stared. The kitchen was a wreck. Sticky counters, broken glass in the sink, empty pizza boxes stacked high. Then my stomach dropped. My tools. My goddamn tools. My socket set was spread across the counter like junk parts at a flea market. My torque wrench, Dad's torque wrench, was rusting in a bucket of water. Open, submerged. I couldn't even breathe. Then I saw it, tucked under an empty salsa jar. Dad's old blueprint binder, the one he gave me before he passed. Stained, warped from beer, pages stuck together like trash. I reached for it. Nate just shrugged. "It's just a hangout, Cal. Relax." I didn't relax. I didn't yell either. I walked to the middle of the room and said one word. Out. One of the guys stood up like he was going to talk back, beer in hand. I snatched it before he could blink. "Out," I said again, louder. They shuffled past me, muttering. The music cut off. Boots stomped down the hall. The last guy slammed into the doorframe on his way out. Nate laughed like it was all a joke. "You seriously kicking me out over a party? I'll call Mom and Dad." I flipped through the binder. Pages smeared, ruined. My chest burned. "Call them, then pack your crap. You're done crashing here." He blinked like I'd smacked him. Didn't move, so I did it for him. Grabbed his duffel, threw it out the door, then slammed it behind him. And for the first time in months, the place went quiet. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. A week later, I was sitting at my parents' dining room table, poking at a plate of pot roast I didn't ask for. Mashed potatoes, green beans, one of Mom's Jell-O salads no one ever finishes. It was the classic guilt meal. Nate was already there when I walked in, posted up at the head of the table like he ran the place. Grinning, all friendly, like he hadn't trashed my apartment a few nights ago. He didn't even say sorry, just nodded and slid me a beer like we were still tight. Mom was in overdrive, buzzing around, over-smiling, asking me about work and if I'd been eating enough. Dad barely said a word until we all sat down. But I noticed the manila folder sitting next to his plate the whole time. That folder had weight. Soon as my fork touched the roast, he cleared his throat. "Cal, your mother and I have been working on something, a real opportunity." Mom reached over, touched my hand. "It's a family venture, something for all of us." I didn't respond, I just waited. Dad opened the folder and started sliding papers across the table. Property listings, shop floor layouts, a business card mock-up, a damn logo. Miller Performance, red and silver, real official looking. "You'd be head mechanic," Dad said, eyes locked on me. "Nate's handling the business side, marketing, payroll, all of it." Nate perked up. "I've already been building the brand online. TikTok, Instagram, all that. We've got traction. Couple thousand followers already." "Traction?" I muttered. He nodded like he was proud. "Used your name. People respond to it. Cal Miller. Sounds legit." Then Dad added, "We've already started the loan process. Just need your signature to finalize it. License is under your name anyway." I froze. My license? Mom handed me a pen like it was a done deal. "It's all lined up, honey. This is your chance to step into something bigger." Something crawled up the back of my neck. I stood up without saying a word and walked out the front door. The cold air hit hard, smelled like leaves and someone grilling down the block. I didn't have a coat on, didn't care. I needed space. Then the door creaked open behind me. Aunt Karen stepped out, wrapped in her faded maroon sweater, holding a mug of coffee like a prop. She stood next to me for a minute before speaking. "They didn't tell you ahead of time, did they?" I shook my head. She sipped her coffee. "Not surprised. Your mom did the same to me." I looked over. She wasn't smiling. "Back when I was in design school," she said, "I showed her some mock-ups. Just ideas. 6 months later, she was selling my sketches at church craft fairs under her name. Told everyone I helped. Never gave me a dime." I clenched my jaw. That sounded way too familiar. "You don't owe them your life, Cal," she said, quiet but sharp. "They'll wrap it in family and legacy, but it's control. You owe yourself a shot at your own path." She turned and went back inside. I stayed out another 10 minutes, watching the porch light flicker. When I finally walked back in, the table was cleared. The folder was still there, pen on top. I picked them both up and shoved them in my jacket. "Not tonight," I said. "We'll talk later." I walked out before they could answer. The next morning, my phone lit up before sunrise. 6:07 a.m. Dad. "We'll need to talk insurance this week. Looking at providers now." 6:12 a.m. Mom. "Which of your tools can we use to get started? The compressor? Welder?" 6:15 a.m. Nate. "Yo, here's the parts list for phase 1. Should be around 2,200. You can order it, right?" I didn't respond. Just shoved the phone in my locker and clocked in at the yard. But it didn't stop. By break, I had 5 missed calls and 2 voicemails. Mom rambling about social media posts and buzz building. Dad asking for my driver's license number for the business paperwork. I shoved my gloves on and tried to shake it off. I was welding a panel for a trailer bed, basic TIG work, when my phone buzzed again in my chest pocket. I flinched. The arc jumped. Flame snapped sideways, scorched the edge clean off. "Shit," I muttered, yanking off the mask. The panel was ruined, bent and bubbled. My foreman gave me a look from across the yard. I nodded back like I had it under control. But I didn't, not even close. After lunch, I stepped outside for air. That's when my phone rang again, local number I didn't recognize. Cal speaking. "Hey there, son. This is Jerry Adler from church. Just wanted to call and congratulate you." I paused. "For what?" He chuckled. "Heard the news Sunday morning. Your dad told the whole congregation about the new shop. Said his boys are bringing the Miller name back in style." I didn't answer. "You're making your family proud, son. Big shoes to fill, but you're doing it right." I hung up without saying a word. Just stood there, heart thudding against my ribs like it was trying to get out. They'd told everyone, made it public, like I'd already signed. I hadn't agreed to a damn thing. By the time I got home, I was wrecked. I dropped my keys, cracked open a warm beer, and sat on the floor because I couldn't even look at the couch without thinking about Nate's party. The manila folder was still sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd tossed it the night before. I didn't open it, then my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I picked up. "Cal Miller? Speaking. This is Don Ramirez, foreman over at Garrison Motors. You sent us a resume back in April. Still looking?" My mouth went dry. I sat up straight. Yeah, I am." "Good. I've looked through your stuff. Your references check out, and your steel works solid. We've got an opening for a lead fabricator. You free to come in tomorrow morning for a bench test?" It took a second for my brain to catch up. I'd applied to that job on a whim, figuring it'd go nowhere. "I can be there," I said. "Good, 7 sharp. Bring your gloves." He hung up. I sat there for a full minute, phone still in my hand. No music, no TV, just the sound of the fridge humming and the blood pounding in my ears. For the first time in weeks, I felt like something might actually be mine. Next morning, I pulled into Garrison Motors just before 7. The place looked nothing like the shop Dad dreamed up, or the mess Nate had scribbled all over my kitchen table. This was real. Clean concrete floors, polished tool benches, big bay doors rolled up to let in fresh air. No music blasting, no half-eaten food on toolboxes. Just the sound of focused work. A guy in a navy work shirt with Martin stitched above the chest pocket met me at the front. He didn't smile, just handed me a welding mask. Stainless flat stock, 1 seam, then build a frame jig from scratch. "We'll see if you're all talk." I didn't talk, just gotta work. First pass on the weld was smooth, tight even, no splash. He watched from 10 feet back, arms crossed. Didn't say a word. I tuned everything else out and started on the jig, measuring twice, cutting clean. I'd done 1,000 of these in the yard, but this one felt different. This one counted. When I finished, he walked over, crouched down, ran a hand over the weld. "That's real work," he said, then stood up and looked me in the eye. "You're what we need." He walked me to the office, pulled out a file, and slid a contract across the desk. Lead fabricator, full-time, design input, weekends off, paid holidays, health, dental, vision, real numbers, a real future. My hands shook holding the damn thing. I nodded, jaw tight. Yeah, I want this." He gave me a half smile. "You start Monday. Bring your own gear or use ours. Your choice." I left the building in a daze, contract tucked under my arm like a trophy. The sun hit different walking to my truck. I didn't turn the radio on, didn't need noise, just drove. When I got home, the apartment door was unlocked. I stepped inside and stopped cold. Nate, again. He had my coffee table covered in papers, blueprints, paint swatches, hardware catalogs, a roll of tape, some color wheels, a sketchbook. It looked like an art school exploded in my living room. "We're thinking gunmetal gray for the walls," he said without looking up. "Gives it that clean, high-end feel without looking sterile." I dropped my keys hard on the counter. "What the hell are you doing here?" He looked up, unfazed. "Relax, man. Figured I'd get some planning done while you were at work. Big stuff coming." I walked over and moved the contract from under my arm to right in front of his face. He glanced at it, then looked again. "What's this?" "Job offer," I said. "Lead fabricator, Garrison Motors." He laughed like it was a prank. "You're serious?" I didn't answer. He scanned the page again, slower this time. I saw it hit him. "But what about our plan?" he asked, voice going tight. I crossed my arms. "Your plan." He shook his head. "Come on, Cal. You're just going to walk away from what we built?" "What you built, without asking. You used my name, my license, and threw my stuff into a loan app before I even said yes." He looked down at the swatches. His voice dropped. "I thought we were doing something together. I thought this was our shot." I stepped forward, took the swatches off my table one by one, and dropped them into the box he'd brought. "This is your shot," I said. "Mine's already started." He didn't say another word. I held the door open. He grabbed the box, stared at me like I'd kicked him, and walked out without looking back. I shut the door behind him and locked it. For once, it felt like something in my life finally clicked into place. By the next morning, my voicemail was full. Message 1. "Dad, you walk away now. You're betraying everything this family built. You think you're better than us?" Message 2. "You will regret this, Cal. You're throwing away your legacy for a paycheck." Message 3. "You come to dinner Sunday. We fix this face to face." Then came Mom. Text 1. "Why are you causing drama over one little shop? We were just trying to include you." Text 2. "This is family. You're not being fair to Nate." Text 3. "I raised you better than this." I turned the phone face down and didn't touch it for hours. Then Aunt Karen called. "Don't hang up," she said the second I picked up. "I'm not calling to pick a side." I sat down. She never called just to talk. "I heard about the shop," she said, "and I know that look in your father's eye. You need a lawyer." I didn't say anything. "Your uncle went through the same thing years ago. Your dad tried to loop him into a side business using his credit. Took years to unwind it. He barely got out clean." That got my attention. "I have someone you can talk to," she said. "No pressure. Just don't wait too long." I met her later that week at a little law office in a strip mall. Looked like the kind of place you'd go to fight a parking ticket. But the guy she introduced me to, Mr. Hartley, was sharp, all business. He skimmed the loan packet I brought, stopped cold at the forged signature, my name written in block letters like a bad copy. "This was submitted?" he asked. I nodded. I found out when my church neighbor congratulated me. He flipped through the pages again. "Your license number's here, social, all of it." I felt my stomach turn. "This is fraud," he said flat, "but we can stop it before funds get dispersed. First thing we do, file a dispute with the lender. Then we get a cease and desist sent to your parents. Every call after that comes through me." I exhaled for the first time all day. Back at the yard, word got around fast. I didn't mean to share anything, but one of the guys overheard me on the phone with Hartley. Turns out, you go through hell, and some people actually show up. Rico, a guy from Paint, offered me his spare room. "It ain't fancy," he said, "but it's clean. and no one will steal your staff. Lena from Tool Supply handed me a card with her brother's number. He's a locksmith. He'll rekey your place tonight. Even Mike, the quiet one who never said more than 2 words to me, left a 6-pack and a sticky note that just said, "You did the right thing." It hit me then. This crew, these people, they weren't just co-workers. They were my second family. They didn't ask for my name. They didn't demand my loyalty. They just had my back. And that was more than I could say for the ones I was born with. Tuesday night, I pulled into my parents' driveway, jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd chip a tooth. Through the window, I could already see them gathered around the dining table, Mom lighting candles, Dad setting down a bottle of cheap champagne, Nate pointing at a laptop screen like he was giving a damn TED Talk. Blueprints were spread across the table, next to printed out logos and mock invoices. It looked more like a company launch than a family meeting. I stepped inside without knocking. Mom clapped her hands like I'd just come home from war. "There he is! Cal, sit! We've got everything ready." Dad stood, beaming like a salesman who thought he had the deal in the bag. He slid a stack of papers across the table. "Final step's easy. Just need your name on it, son. Then we can pop the cork." I didn't sit. I pulled 3 documents from my folder and laid them flat across their celebration mess. One was my signed contract from Ember, the holding company over Garrison Motors. The second, a formal letter from Hartley's office. And third, a copy of the fraud report, highlighted and stamped. "I've already accepted a different offer," I said, "and you forged my name." The room went dead silent, for maybe 5 seconds. Then Dad snapped. "You're blowing all this up over pride?" I didn't move. "This was about building something with your family," he said, voice rising. "But you'd rather work for strangers? You think you're better than us now?" Mom chimed in, holding her glass like a peace treaty. "You're throwing away the only thing tying us together, Cal. We did this for you." "No," I cut in. "You did this to me." Nate pushed back from the table, face red. "You're so full of yourself, man. This was our dream, our shot, and you just stomped it out 'cause what? You can't stand me being part of it?" I turned toward him. "You used my name. You trashed my place. You put a loan in under my credit, and I'm supposed to treat this like teamwork?" He sneered. Jealous, selfish, just like always. "Enough," came a voice from the doorway. We all turned. Aunt Karen walked in like she'd been standing there for a while. No coat, no purse. Just her and that cold look in her eye she saved for Mom's worst moments. She stepped beside me, didn't even glance at the table. "Cal owes you nothing," she said. "Not his name, not his time, not his future. You pulled this same stunt on me, Marie. You stole from me then, and you're doing it now." Mom looked stunned. "That was different." "No, it wasn't," Karen snapped. "You just thought you'd get away with it again." Dad looked ready to explode. Nate looked like he wanted to, but I didn't give them the chance. I scooped up my papers and walked to the door. No goodbyes, no second thoughts. And for the first time, I wasn't the one left behind, fixing someone else's wreckage. They built this fire. I just stopped being the one burning in it. Sunday night, I was out in the garage, wiping down a fresh weld bead when the doorbell rang. I walked in, grease still on my hands, and checked the peephole. Dad, Mom, Nate, and, behind them, holding a worn brown case, Grandpa Walt. I opened the door without a word and stepped aside. Dad barreled in first. "You're breaking this family apart, Cal." I didn't argue, just motioned to the table. "Sit." They shuffled around, except Grandpa. He stayed standing near the wall, case clutched tight. I walked to the workbench and laid out 5 small trays, samples I'd built after hours at Garrison. Chrome polished, clean welds, angles tight enough to shave with, my initials etched into each one. "This is what I do," I said. "What I built. Not what you assigned me." Dad glanced down and scoffed. "Looks like hobby work." Nate leaned back, arms crossed, sulking. "It's not even your own shop." Mom wiped under her eye like she was on stage. "You were supposed to bring us together, not tear us apart." I looked at all of them. Not a single one saw it, except Grandpa. He stepped forward, set the case on the table, and unlatched it with both hands. Inside, resting on faded velvet, was a vintage torque wrench. Steel, worn, balanced. "That belonged to your uncle," Grandpa said. "The day your dad tried to take credit for his work, he packed up and left. Built his own name out west." He picked up the wrench, turned it in his hands, then held it out to me. "You remind me of him." I took it. It felt heavier than I remembered. You earned your name, Cal. Don't let anyone stamp it over, Nate muttered. So what, I'm the villain now? I tried to build something with my brother. I pointed to the door. Respect me or get out. Silence. Then Nate stood up and walked out. Mom followed, crying louder this time. Dad hesitated like he had more to say, but didn't, just left. Only Grandpa stayed. He looked around, nodded once at the trays, then sat down without a word. That night, I hung the torque wrench on the wall above my workbench, centered, clean. It gleamed like a medal. Some families raise you, some drain you. But sometimes, the first real thing you ever build starts with a single, solid no. Who do you think crossed the line first, Cal or his family? Drop your answer in the comments. And if the story hit home, hit subscribe and like the video.